If anybody asks, you're studying culture. That was what we were told each time we stepped out of the taxi in front of the visa renewal office in Indonesia. Technically, we were doing 10 months of volunteer service with a church, but going up to the counter and saying we were there for service sounded like we were with the military. And stating we were Christian missionaries might draw some unwanted scrutiny. So, according to our paperwork, we studied culture. About halfway through our service term, our team was invited to a mission worker conference in Sumatra, just a quick flight from the island where we were living. It was mostly long-term workers from across Southeast Asia. Some had been in their placements for less than a year. Others had been doing this work for decades. There were couples, families, and one other short-term service group, like us. One afternoon, I had the chance to go on a walk with a worker from Cambodia and a church leader from Indonesia. We set out on a long forested path that wound up a mountain overlooking the retreat center and the nearby town. Both of the men were originally from Indonesia, and for most of the hike, they walked and talked, while I lagged behind and took photos. At one point, it started to rain, and we huddled together under a shallow awning of a snack shop. When the rain cleared, we headed back towards the retreat center. On our way down the mountain, as we navigated the rain-slick rocks along the path, the church leader started to ask me questions. His voice was deep, and his words were chosen carefully. What program was I with? What did I do? Since he was already connected with the church, I didn't have to give him the half-truth that was written on my visa application. Instead, I told him honestly. I said I was in a service program with Mennonite Mission Network, and I volunteered at a church. I made videos. "How many souls have you brought to the Lord?" he asked. I wanted to tell him that wasn't why I was there. I wanted to say that what I was doing, voluntary service, was completely different. But I had just said I worked at a church, and that I was sent by a mission organization, and it dawned on me that I didn't exactly know why my service was different from mission work. I just knew that it was. So, instead of saying any of that, I gave him the exact number of souls I had knowingly brought to the Lord. None. He took his eyes off the path and looked at me. "How long are you here in Indonesia?" "Until July." "Well," he said, his eyes turning back to the trail, "you still have time then." The tension that sits between the ideals of service and mission can be hard to pin down. When I told the church leader I had saved exactly 0 souls, I didn't view it as a problem. It just wasn't my job. His response, however, was to reassure me that I hadn't failed, not yet at least, in what must have been my goal, since I had traveled to another country with a mission organization. The church leader and I were having a conversation together, but ideologically, we might as well have been hiking down 2 separate mountains. On this episode of MissionWary, we'll take an in-depth look at the relationship between service and mission. Linda and I will talk with Marisa Smucker, Senior Executive of Mission Network's Ventures Division, about the agency's Mennonite Voluntary Service program, which you might know better as MVS. We'll also speak with Andrea Sawyer-Kirksey, Executive Director of DOOR, a faith-based organization that provides opportunities for service, learning, and leadership development within the urban context. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Linda.
Hey, Travis. Good to see you again.
Yeah. Today, we have 2 interviews, but Before we start, I had a little question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a part of a church or a part of a small group, I'm assuming you have experienced people going on short-term service trips or mission trips, depending on how they talk about them, like a week, 2 weeks, a summer, a year. And I'm curious, when they come back to your community from wherever they were, how do they talk about their experience?
Yeah. Well, I always like to go to church on those Sundays because, it's alive, whether it's a youth group or whether older people going on a mission trip somewhere, people come back so excited. You get people who aren't theologically oriented often. So you get God's work in the world that's not heady but embodied.
Well, no, but that makes sense that it's not quite as slick or refined as it might come from your preacher.
Right. It's lived experience. I also experienced quite a few cringeworthy moments. I mean, sometimes it almost feels like we've been to a museum and we see exotic things and
there's that disconnect.
Yeah, the us and them language. I mean, sometimes I just have to clench my jaw. So that's my short answer.
That's great. Similar to you, I look forward to those Sundays. But one thing that always kind of struck me the more I saw these is that it seemed like the longer someone was at a place for service or as a mission worker or whatnot, the longer they were at a place, the less they had to share. Because you'd have people at a place for 1 week and they'd come back and that would be the sermon of this youth group sharing, and they'd talk all about the food, they'd talk about what they did, they'd talk about where they went, they'd talk about, we had one day off, so we went to the market, we had another day where we cleaned up branches, blah, 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 blah. And then for someone who was gone for a longer time, whether that's for like a summer or a year or 2 years, it always seemed like for those longer term people, yeah, they wouldn't have as much to say, or stuff was complicated enough that they couldn't just say something without having to explain it.
Maybe that's part of their conversion. At Mission Network, we talk about mutual conversion in mission, where the person going is as much changed as the people to whom they carry the good news in old terms.
Right. And you're doing quotes with your hands, by the way.
I'm doing finger quotes that nobody can see on the air. Yeah.
But anyway, I'm excited to get into this interview. I don't know, are you ready to just jump right in?
I'm ready. Here I am. Send me.
Consider yourself sent.
My name is Marisa Smucker. So MVS is a year-long service opportunity where individuals go to a local context, a service unit hosted by a congregation, where they then have the experience to, 1, live in community with others who are also serving, 2, connect with the host congregation that sponsors the unit and gives leadership to the unit and participate in faith activities through that congregation, and 3, the opportunity to serve, both in a work placement, but also in other community opportunities, events that might be going on around the neighborhood they are, or connecting neighborhoods. And in some cases, those year-long opportunities stretch out to 2 years for those who choose to serve longer.
How have you seen the relationship between service and mission?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there is a kind of a meshing together of the two. And so in this view of mission, oftentimes we're looking and seeing, what is God calling me to? If we think about the Bible in the way that God called Moses, in the way that God called Samuel, even Esther, others in the Bible, and they're saying, here I am, use me, speak, Lord, tell me where I am to go. And that's kind of more of a mission mind. And in service, it's kind of more like, what am I going to do? Who am I going to serve? But I think the meshing happens for me in that it's 2 different doorways, but then we're coming to a common ground. Because when I start serving someplace, I really need to pay attention in the same way that I think about mission. I got to pay attention to where I have now relocated myself. I've got to pay attention to the people I have agreed to serve. I've got to listen to them. I'm not coming with my own ideas of what I should be doing. I've got to listen to what the needs are first. I've got to earn the right to be heard. That's something I learned from my Pittsburgh years working there. And as I do that, I think about service. How often do we hear, well, in missions too, how often do we hear people say, oh, I received so much more than I gave? And in that sense, when I think of service, it's in this common area that we're reminded, I may go to serve, but I also need to receive. In the receiving, the people that I am interacting with that live in this location now, I am open to their gifts that they have to share with the world. And I'm not just the one saying, I'm the only one that can make a difference here. We make a difference together. There was a need. I came to fulfill the need, but I also see the greater work that God is doing that we can't always be privy to because we're not God. We don't know what that is, but we can enter in and say, here I am.
Talking about how service and mission both are doors that basically kind of lead the same place, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see MVS as practicing a form of mission?
Yeah, I would say that. I think what makes it hard is people have a preconceived idea of what mission is. The word mission and missional are words that carry baggage. And words in themselves don't carry baggage, but it's the meaning that people have given to them or experienced over the years in which that baggage becomes more noticeable. And so I will admit, I'm hesitant to use the word mission when I talk with potential applicants. So instead, I talk about how I understand mission and put it in words that they're more open to. It's because I do believe that each of us is looking to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. And so as I think about what it means to participate in God's work and God's mission in the world, that's what I have in the back of my mind. So whether or not I use the word mission, I don't want that to be the hang up. I don't want that to stop people from thinking, yes, I want to be a part of that. Yes, I'm looking for something that I too can say yes to. I too can say, here I am, use me. And so, yes, I think MVS is a place where mission can happen, but it's got to be beyond kind of our own construct of what we've come to understand this word as. And we need to continue conversation and hear others people's view. For some people, mission is a wonderful word. I think of the word evangelism. I think of the word discipleship. People can be on complete opposite sides. Oh, did you say discipleship? What's that about? Right? And other people can say, that's what I've been looking for. Right? Well, in discipleship, it's very similar to mentorship. It's very similar to teaching and bringing people along with you. So part of it to me is being more open to the vocabulary I use. Being more open to being clear, being transparent about what MVS is, but also at the same time, we're not here to say, this is what will happen in your MVS experience. You will go and, make disciples. You will go and be a missionary. You will go and only do service. That's limiting the experience. And in this conversation, I want to add too, we are facilitating, we are partnering with other congregations, organizations, agencies. So there's a lot of people in the mix here with all of our service programs. Our service units are hosted by congregations. Within the service units, each participant is going to a different agency. So now you've involved local agencies as well. And so this is a network of people, network of organizations that all have their ideas around what service and or mission is. And so there has to be a kind of openness, a kind of letting go, because that's what partnership's about, right? It's not necessarily having this ownership or control of something, but it's the working together. And what does it mean to walk along this road together? What does it mean to walk together in mission? And if mission isn't the word that I use in one setting, but I might use it in another setting, that's okay. The idea is still there. We're walking together in this journey, in this world where we have an understanding that God is doing something bigger than what we are.
We'll be right back. All right. Well, thank you for being with me in that interview, Linda. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was powerful stuff that Marisa had to say there.
Mm-hmm. One thing that stuck out to me about it, at least, was just Marisa's emphasis on words and wording, and how getting to the core of what people believe about mission and service is more important than the words themselves. What was the quote? Being clear about what MVS is, but also being open to the vocabulary I use.
Right.
And I think I was surprised at how open that invitation felt then, because somebody can come to MVS looking to do mission, if that's how they define it, but they can also come wanting to do service, and MVS is going to work with them to find something that works with them, as long as they're up to being open about what the community they come into needs more than what they want to do.
Yeah. I loved how one of the words that she suggested, like if service and mission don't resonate with the person she's conversing with, that she uses discipleship. And sometimes, she said it in such a dramatic way. Sometimes the person is like, yes, that's what I want to do. I want to follow Jesus as a disciple. And another person will say, ew, discipleship, what's that? So, just an example of how important words are, and to be in tune with the person that we're conversing with.
Well, and talking about the importance of words, up next is our interview with Andrea Sawyer-Kirksey, who is the executive director of DOOR, which stands for Discovering Opportunities for Outreach and Reflection. And DOOR is an organization that operates nationwide in major cities, and they also put a big emphasis on wording. If you go to their website, doornetwork.org, the first words you see on there is to serve, not to save. That's in big, bold letters. It's the first thing that comes up. And the second group of words is more than mission trips, justice-focused service, learning, volunteer experiences. And that's a bit of a mouthful, but I think that goes a long way. Like right there, they are already working to redefine what they believe are mission trips, or what people would use that terminology for.
Correct.
I think some of that comes from DOOR works at service and justice learning experiences from an anti-colonialist viewpoint of pushing back against some of that. And I'm eager to talk to her about what that means, or what that looks like to DOOR. But anyway, I'm excited for this interview with Andrea. Linda, are you ready to jump into this interview?
With Andrea? You bet. I love hearing Andrea speak. It's always a privilege. So let's go, Travis.
Let's do it.
Hello, my name is Andrea Sawyer-Kirksey, and I am the Executive Director for DOOR, which stands for Discovering Opportunities for Outreach and Reflection, which is a national organization that provides service learning opportunities for an intergenerational audience. We work with youth, young adults, college students. So for DOOR, our mission is about inviting people to the city to see the face of God, right? To engage in this work of mutuality, right? It's about education. So even when we use service, we use it as service learning, right? And so our mission is to connect folks, to do education around some difficult topics, around racism, around bias, around, at this moment, Black Lives Matter movement and, the killing of unarmed Black men, right? That's our mission, to take what's happening in the world and then build bridges and tables for people to sit around and have these conversations.
So going with that, would you mind talking a little bit about decolonizing service?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think when we think about to colonize something, right? The colonies, this act of going into a place where people already exist, culture, practices, religion, ways of life, and then taking those things and stripping them and then replacing them with the practices and the culture of the oppressor. And so to decolonize that means to get back to the essence of who and what was already there. And so I think with missions and service, decolonizing it, realizing and acknowledging that a lot of these practices started as a way of using religion, salvation, worthiness, as a way to bend people into whoever's doing that their own image, right? And the problem with missions is that it's a system that's set up to reinforce white supremacy. This idea of that whiteness, white gaze, white thought, white Jesus is the right way to do and to be and to engage with the world. And so decolonizing that is to say to folks who are doing missions trips or service learning trips, you are here to be a learner. You don't set the standard. You listen, you watch, you do what you see other people doing, right? You take the lead from them, right? In some spaces with DOOR around this, that we had to decolonize was just a simple act of how we did our worship services. So we have these churches coming in, they want to do worship. And so we would find songs that they were singing at white churches, right? I can't remember any of them, but they painted Jesus in this light, right? And they also painted communities, they may have words about God goes to the slums to seek, those who are lost, right? And we're like, yeah, right? And so we wanted to find songs that were worship songs that uplifted the voice of urban folk, that talked about how Jesus found these centers of urban living, places that he would teach parables about and flip the script on. And the folks that Jesus wanted to be with just because he enjoyed being with them. Versus Jesus saying I've come to change everything about you. Jesus and the woman at the well, he didn't tell her to stop being a Samaritan or, to bow down to him. He came to embrace her fully and to have a conversation and engage with her. So decolonizing the service is about, connecting with people in their own space. So it's not about the white savior. It's not about doing service so that you can get this feeling of superiority, right? I'm going to Chicago, cause there's poor people there and they need my help. And, the little kids, they don't have anybody to love them. So I'm going to go and love them. Putting a kid on your lap, right? And letting them play in your hair. That's not the definition of love. In that neighborhood, what that might mean is the postman in that community asking the kids on report card day how their grades were, and maybe having a little treat for them or just celebrating them. That could be how love is expressed in that community.
Where has DOOR found itself with using the word mission to say what DOOR is about to potential groups?
And how I usually say when I'm out recruiting for DOOR or, promoting DOOR is I'll say that DOOR is a service learning justice education program. And then I'll say some people will call it a mission. They will come to us saying that their church is doing a missions trip or a work trip. And so people use a lot of different language around their own identity of how they put a group together and plan a trip. And that's fine. But this is who we are. We let other people define it as a missions trip or a work trip. We try not to.
What would you say people, if they're looking for an avenue of service, are there some things that you would say that people should be looking for or to be cautious of or to be aware of as they look for those avenues of service?
Yeah. So I think, you want to look for organizations that even when you go on their website, language, like what are they saying about the community? How are they referring to folks? Are they using language that brings honor and dignity to the places that they're saying that here's a place that you can come and do service? And this is something that DOOR is doing constantly, is examining all of our materials. And I'm telling you, today we will go through it and be like, oh, this is good. Like, ain't no white supremacy coming up in here. And then 2 weeks later, we'll be doing something where we're like, ooh, okay, some white supremacy is up in here, some white gays, right? And it takes intentionality. It takes both inward examination and outward examination. Because look, colonization, white gaze, white space, white supremacy is the air we breathe. It is the very water we swim in. And so I can't inhale without taking something in, right? Watching TV or, the way I engage with people, my education, the books that I had to read through school, the movies I had to watch, the language I had to use, right? And so whatever organization that you're going to partner with, to be able to go through their website, try to get an essence of who they are and how they speak about people. If one of my kids says, I met a homeless man, what would your response be? And mine would be I would tell that kid that he met a man who was experiencing housing insecurity because no one is their situation. So there's these kinds of clues and investigation that you need to do. And again, nobody's perfect. DOOR is a mostly Black and brown space as far as our staff and who we partner with in communities, but we still have to continue to examine. So, when you're looking for a place to do service, missions, whatever, you really want to try as hard as you can to figure out what model they're doing service out of. And for DOOR, we want you to do that work too, because if you come for the wrong reason, you're going to feel very uncomfortable. You're going to have a hard week because you may come to DOOR for a lot of reasons. We invite you for very few. And we try not to pivot the way that we expect for people to respect the community and come as a learner. And we start with those lessons as soon as they cross our threshold. I used to start with, I want you to know that you being here is nothing special. We don't need you here, but we want you to be here with us as siblings in Christ, as folks who want to love and serve their neighbors, as people who have come to a new place to a new context outside of your comfort zone so that you can see God differently from how you may see God at home. And we encourage that when they go home and they share their stories, because they all do, they have like a mission Sunday, right? That they share that as though the people they were talking about were also sitting in the congregation. And that, yeah, you would share the truth about some of the struggles in our city, but that the people hearing that would be able to still keep their dignity. So research, pay attention, make calls, do the work, and do the work in your own life before you show up. That's a whole nother podcast. So I'm going to stop there.
I'm tuning in for that podcast. That's great.
All right. Well, thank you, Linda, for being with me with that interview. That was really good.
What a ride, Travis.
I feel like I should have been taking notes.
Well, I kind of was. The writer in me just can't let good quotes go.
So with Andrea's interview, if you're looking at your notes, what are some of the things that stuck out to you about this interview with her?
Well, we've been talking about language throughout this whole podcast with Marisa and the language of saving souls. And I believe she talked about decolonizing service. That's kind of a hard, we're not used to hearing that, some of us anyway. But I thought she did a really great job of defining what I heard her saying was, let's get back to the essence of the original plan rather than bending God's message to white supremacy principles.
Right.
I thought she did a brilliant job of helping us understand what decolonizing service is about.
And of getting back to the way a community more naturally operates without that outside influence of another culture trying to change the way they do life.
Right, which she calls white gaze when she's talking about Black and brown communities. Another beautiful quote from Andrea: a weekend or a week with Dor gives us an opportunity, and here's where her quote starts, take what's happening in the world and building bridges and tables. You know, I just loved how building bridges, that's pretty common. We talk about that, but we're building tables. And for me, that takes us back to Mike Sherrill's episode where he talked about the importance of eating together.
That's true.
Oh, and Travis, this is beautiful how these podcasts are tying together.
It's a pity I didn't plan it.
Hey, the Holy Spirit, right?
Right.
But you know, when we sit at table, I'm going back to Mike Sherrill's use of the story of Emmaus. It's when we sit at table together that our eyes are opened and we see Jesus. And Dor invites us to see the face of God in the city. I mean,
that's right. That's right. Oh, wow.
I've got goosebumps. I don't know about you.
Nope. Yep. I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt and I can see them. And that's something we will have links in the description to some resources if people listening are interested in following up with some of this conversation on language, especially with the decolonization and white supremacy. Some of those terms, we'll have some links in the description if you want to follow up to learn more about what those mean in our context. As well as, we can do a short plug. This is a Mission Network podcast.
Of course. We've got great resources.
It's true. Mission Network has a booklet called Shared Voices. And Shared Voices is a great piece of literature in that it walks through a little bit about when you travel, when you go to a different context, a different culture, how to write, how to talk about those experiences and the people that you meet.
And where you point the lens of the camera.
Yeah. And the story that you tell through how you speak about things, through what you take pictures of. And so if you're interested, if you have a youth group that's going on a trip, if you are traveling as well, or if you're just interested to learn more about that connection between language and those power dynamics that are present in interactions, we've got a link in the description that you can download Mission Network's Shared Voices document for free. So, Linda, I feel like we've come full circle 3 times in this podcast episode. I'd say we've gone in circles, but it sure doesn't feel like that.
Blessed are they who go round in circles, for they shall be called big wheels.
Did you just come up with that?
No, it's from my dad. I don't know where he got it, but yeah.
Oh, either way, that's fantastic. Well, thanks again, Linda, and I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode.
Can't wait, Travis.
For more information about what Mennonite Mission Network is doing through partnerships across the U.S. and around the world, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or go to our website, MennoniteMission.net. And next time on MissionWary, we'll talk with James Crable on the biblical impetus for mission, as well as what North American churches can learn from mission practiced around the world. See you then.